What's going on, guys? Marco here with Front Yard Fantasy, and I am bringing you some win now trade targets for your Dynasty teams. All right, so let's jump right into it. The first guy on my list is a guy who, his value has dropped a little bit over the last few weeks with the news of Chris Godwin looked likely to return a little bit earlier than people were expecting. So it is Mike Evans. Mike Evans coming into this offseason, he is just one of those guys who was a lock to get 1,000 yards, get 8 to 12 touchdowns. I think last year he had 14 touchdowns. And it looked like Chris Godwin was going to miss a significant amount of time, which put Mike Evans up at my wide receiver 5 for 2022, which makes him obviously a phenomenal win now trade target. But obviously we know now that Chris Godwin might be back a little bit earlier, maybe even week 1. I think that's a little bit of a stretch if I'm being honest. But even if he does step onto the field week 1, what can you expect from Mike Evans? Why should you be trading for him? Well, he's never actually not had a season where he eclipsed 1,000 yards. So he's almost a lock, a guaranteed lock for 1,000 yards at this point, especially with Tom Brady. He is looking like a lock to be another double-digit touchdown threat. Chris Godwin, whether he's on the field or not, will not be fully healthy. Antonio Brown is gone. Rob Gronkowski is gone. And sure, they brought in Kyle Rudolph. They brought in a couple other guys there. Cade Otton is a rookie tight end. But really, when you look at this team, Mike Evans is obviously the red zone target when it comes to, who they're going to be looking for in the red zone, in the end zone. When you look at their pass catchers, there's not a ton of big-bodied guys like this. Chris Godwin will obviously get his. He will be involved. But Mike Evans and Tom Brady have built immediate chemistry. Mike Evans is one of the more underrated, somehow, wide receivers in the NFL. And I think you should trade for him right now if you are contending, which means if you think you have a shot to win this year, next year, even the year after that, I think that's okay to go out and get Mike Evans. Now, you might be wondering, what the heck should I be giving up for him? And I saw a couple deals made recently in Dynasty Leagues that I'm not really against. I think these would be great deals if you are a win now team. Obviously, it depends on your team's roster construction and things like that, but here's a couple of them for you. Ready? I saw Elijah Mitchell go for Mike Evans straight up in a Dynasty League. Obviously, you need to make sure that you have running backs, but Elijah Mitchell is one of those guys who's probably not going to be much more than a RB2 this season, even if you do, and I do think that he's going to carry a bulk of the work for the 49ers. He's just not involved enough in the passing game. So if you're okay giving up, or if your team is okay giving up someone who's around RB2, maybe high-end RB3 value in Elijah Mitchell, I would be okay giving him away for Mike Evans because, like I said, Mike Evans is a top 10 wide receiver for me for 2022. All right, now if you don't want to give up a running back and you've got a wealth of wide receiver depth, but you need to get that guy who's going to get you over the hump like a Mike Evans, I'm okay giving up a guy who I really believe in, but I don't think he's going to be that special for 2022 in Devonta Smith. Now, I saw this trade recently, and I think, honestly, in most leagues, you're going to have to give up more than Devonta Smith for Mike Evans, but maybe you've got someone who really, really believes in Devonta Smith, or they're an Eagles fan or something like that, and you should capitalize on that because here's the reality. In 2022, Devonta Smith is probably a top 35 wide receiver. I think he actually comes in just outside of my top 35 for 2022 for fantasy purposes. I think he lands at like my wide receiver 37 or something like that. And the reality is Devonta Smith is really, really good. And so what needs to happen for the Eagles is that Jalen Hurts either needs to take a huge step or they're going to have a new quarterback. And 2023 could be an awesome year for Devonta Smith. But like I said, if you are a win now team, you need to get that wide receiver that's going to get you over the hump, that's going to get you that title. I'm okay swapping a young Devonta Smith, who maybe doesn't have the ceiling Mike Evans does in 2022, and maybe in 2023 you're like, darn it, but you've got a title and that makes it worth it. All right, the last trade I want to offer out there or throw out there that I saw Mike Evans go for is a 2023 first for, and I know people are like, 2023 first is the most valuable thing in the world. And I get they're valuable, but they still have inherent risk, of course. So a 2023 first for Mike Evans and a 2024 second. This way, you still get future draft capital, and then you're getting that asset that's going to help you win a title this year. And sure, you're going to lose your 2023 first, but if you're a contender, your 2023 first isn't an elite asset. Sure, it's going to be a good player because we know the 2023 draft is absolutely stacked, but still, Mike Evans, if he's going to help your team get over the hump like I think he should, that is totally fine for me, especially if you're getting that 2024 second back. And if none of these deals work out for you, but you've offered them, or you're looking for, hey, what about this? What about this? Hit me up on Twitter, Marco@Marco_14P. I will answer any questions, help you out with trades for your Dynasty team. But let's go to the next guy on my list, because I've got a couple more for you. Next guy, similar to Mike Evans, he's an older veteran wide receiver. It's Keenan Allen for the Los Angeles Chargers. So Keenan Allen, very similar to Mike Evans. He's one of those guys who has just been perpetually a top 15 wide receiver or better, as long as he's been healthy after his early career struggles. And he's one of those guys who, especially in PPR leagues, is a little bit more elevated than some of the rest of this group, but he is a staple to this offense. Obviously, Mike Williams is the big play guy. Mike Williams even got in on some of the slant play last year, which made him so valuable. And I think Mike Williams has a chance to outscore Keenan Allen, which a lot of people are talking about right now. But I still think Keenan Allen is the wide receiver to own out of the Los Angeles Chargers wide receiver room. And so because of that, Keenan Allen is more of a value now, or is a value now more than ever. He is going to be the guy who gets peppered with targets. Sure, Josh Palmer might be involved to some degree and might even infringe a little bit on Keenan Allen, but Keenan Allen right now is going at a price where he's not anywhere or being valued anywhere near a top 15 or higher wide receiver. And I think he is firmly going to land in that category, especially for 2022. He could get your team over the hump. All right, so here's two trades that I saw Keenan Allen go for recently that were really interesting to me. Similar to the Mike Evans trade, it depends what your roster construction looks like, but I saw Keenan Allen go for Damian Harris and a 2023 second, which I am totally okay selling Damian Harris. I think he's going to be a solid player for 2022, but I think Ramondre Stevenson is going to infringe on him at the very least, if not take over the 1A option there, because he can just do a little bit more, especially when it comes to the passing down work. So Damian Harris in a 23 second, or a very similar player in a very similar situation, but on a more prolific offense maybe, Devin Singletary in a 2023 second. I am totally fine moving either of those running backs plus that 2023 second to get Keenan Allen. If you're a contender, you know what the one thing you really shouldn't be caring about is your second round picks. Yes, of course they have value, but if you're a contender and you can get an asset that can help you get a win, second round picks should mean almost nothing to you, and you should be able to just give them away and go get the players you need. All right, and then the last deal here for Keenan Allen, I saw Brandon Ayuk in a 2024 second. Now, if you follow me on Twitter at all, you know that I am a huge believer in Brandon Ayuk as a dynasty asset. Obviously, his value changes a little bit with the Debo signing, for that 3-year contract, but still, I think he's a very good player. He's going to do well in this Trey Lance-led offense. That being said, he's got a ton of hype coming out of camp. I think if you can move Brandon Ayuk right now in a 2024 second, you're going to see much more production from a Keenan Allen, who could finish, 15, 20, maybe even 25 wide receiver spots higher than Brandon Ayuk in 2022. So I think that is a great deal. And, if Keenan Allen is on a team that's not really trying to win right now and is just trying to accrue assets, this is a home run. You can probably get an auto accept from a deal like that. All right, guys, I got 2 more players for you. Ready? Next one is a running back, James Conner. Now, I know plenty of people have told you James Conner's value, and he is. He's not the exciting option. He's not the sexy running back, but he is a huge value for your dynasty teams in 2022. 2023, that's probably not the case, but 2022, James Conner can get you week in, week out, top 15, top 12, maybe even top 5 some weeks production because of how they use him. He's going to be involved in the red zone, probably the only running back on this team outside of maybe Keontae Ingram, who's going to really be involved in the red zone. And he is the primary passing down back. Sure, they've got Benjamin. I think they've got, Darrell Williams or something like that. But none of those guys are going to infringe enough on James Conner to lower his value to where he is currently being valued, which is like low or high 20s running back in redraft leagues. So here's a couple trades quickly that I saw for James Conner, and I would be okay making these instantly. 2 2023 seconds for James Conner. Again, like I said, if you're a contender, you know what you don't care about: 2023 seconds, 2024 seconds, 2025 seconds. Second round picks don't matter if you're trying to win now and you can get a player that can help you do it. The next one is Juju Smith-Schuster and a 2023 second. So I actually think Juju Smith-Schuster is, a wide receiver 2 with upside in this Chiefs offense, but he's only there for 1 year. We don't know if they're going to hold on to him after that. Obviously, Sky Moore is there, and, beyond that, they could draft a player. So there's a lot of questions after this season with Juju. And when I look at the value that Juju or James Conner will bring to your team, I think James Conner is probably going to be more productive. He's going to score more fantasy points, but also hitting on the running back position is infinitely more important for your fantasy teams, especially for teams that are trying to win a title, than hitting at the wide receiver position, because there's so many wide receivers that are kind of all in this same area. So I'm okay making a move like this. Find the Juju Smith-Schuster believer in your league and make this deal, because there's always 1, 2, 3 people in a league who think he's with Patrick Mahomes. It can happen. And I think you can capitalize on that and get a guy like a James Conner. All right, the last one is a really popular one, especially with the talk out of Rams camp that he has been special. The team loves him. The coaches love him. But it's Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson is one of those guys who is coming out of a down year where he had COVID, then he kind of just gave up because he and the entire Bears offense knew Matt Nagy wasn't making any decisions to game plan or scheme for Justin Fields-led offense, and it made this whole team just kind of fall apart. Allen Robinson is a very good player still. He's actually younger than Cooper Kupp, who everyone has as the wide receiver 1, rightfully so. Wide receiver 1, 2, I don't really care. But Allen Robinson is younger than Cooper Kupp. He is not past his prime. He is a proficient, prolific route runner. And when you look at dynasty wide receivers, especially ones that you're hoping to help your team win a title, you look at these guys who are route technicians because their careers are extended typically longer because they don't rely solely on athleticism. And Allen Robinson fits this bill perfectly. I think Allen Robinson is much better than Robert Woods was when he was with the Rams. And I think he is going to be a massive winner and a massive value in your dynasty leagues, in your redraft leagues. So if you can go make a move for this guy who a lot of people think is some age cliff wide receiver, go do it. And here's the deal. When you look at what Robert Woods was able to do with this Rams team, last year when he got hurt, he was averaging 7.7 targets per game with the Rams. 7.7 targets per game. His career with the Rams, he averaged, I think, 8.2 targets per game. And that's with Cooper Kupp. That's with all these other people there. Todd Gurley for a time. That is something that should not be forgotten, because that means that Allen Robinson has an opportunity to see over 130, almost 140 targets potentially if they were to keep him on that pace. And like I said, I think they will. Allen Robinson is going to be a top 20 wide receiver, top 15 wide receivers in the range of outcomes. I don't think top 12 is, but still high-end wide receiver 2 for almost nothing right now is a home run. So here's some trades I saw for Allen Robinson that I'm all for you guys making. Now, a guy I just mentioned, if you're deep at running back and you don't need him, trade James Conner straight up for Allen Robinson. It's these aging guys not a ton of people are valuing, but there's more wide receivers that are exciting, especially young wide receivers in dynasty leagues that people are excited about, that they're okay moving Allen Robinson if it helps them shore up their running back room with a James Conner. It could be a contender to a contender type trade, but I think those are the trades that people kind of don't think about that can win you a league. All right, the next one is Chase Claypool and a 2023 third. If you know me at all, you know that I know for a fact, kidding, but I believe very firmly that George Pickens is already the wide receiver 2 for the Steelers team. And if Deontay Johnson leaves, which he might, George Pickens is the wide receiver you want for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It is absolutely not Chase Claypool. They're already saying that he's going to be a big slot player, which is fine. But for fantasy slot wide receivers, if you're solely a slot wide receiver, you're really limited on the ceiling that you can have. He's been used as a big gadget, and now the big slot wide receiver kind of makes sense for him. I'm okay moving Chase Claypool in a 2023 third for Allen Robinson right now, because I think Claypool's value, it might do a little bit of this, but it's mostly on a downward trajectory right now. The last one might blow you guys away, might anger some people, but it's Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders is value. Honestly, I think it's appropriate. A lot of people think he's being undervalued, but if you're okay, or if your running back room is decent enough where you can give up a Miles Sanders who's probably like an RB2, who's fighting with Kenny Gainwell, who I really believe in, a lot of people really believe in. I think he's probably an RB2 on the season, and it might be a low-end RB2 at that. If you can trade that for a Allen Robinson like wide receiver, or Allen Robinson who's going to see 125 to 135 targets from Matthew Stafford in this Rams offense, That is a home run. Do that trade right now. All right, guys, let me know your thoughts below or hit me up on Twitter at Marco_14P. Any Dynasty team breakdowns, questions about these trades, more trades. I'm happy to answer anything and everything. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you next time. Peace.